Hello, and welcome to What It Means to Recover. June is Brain Injury Awareness Month, and this year we are shining a light on brain injury to raise more awareness about the prevalence of brain injury and how it impacts all aspects of life. This includes mental health, particularly during recovery. And it is my pleasure to introduce Ovey Yeung and Jonathan Morris, who will be speaking on this topic today. In August 2014, Ovey was a victim of a hit-and-run incident as a pedestrian. She spent 10 days in an induced coma and broke her pelvis, sacrum, and humerus. Ovey also suffered a major traumatic brain injury. After experiencing firsthand how difficult it was to coordinate continuum of care to end of care, Ovey is now committed to making healthcare more accessible by being involved with digitizing healthcare. Jonathan Morris is the CEO of the Canadian Mental Health Association, British Columbia Division. He returned to the CMHA as CEO after almost 2 years in the public service working for the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, where he played a key role in helping build this new ministry from the ground up, eventually leading the policy and legislation branch as senior director. Jonathan has a long research and practice history in suicide prevention, has trained as a counselor, and has held sessional teaching appointments at the University of Victoria and Douglas College in child and youth care. We are so excited to have them both here with us today to talk about what it means to recover.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for those introductions, and welcome to everyone who's joining us this morning from wherever you are. A pleasure to be here joining you from unceded Lekwungen speaking territories, particularly the Songhees, Esquimalt, and WSÁNEĆ nations this morning. For the time we have with you today, Ovey and I are going to have a conversation in front of you where we've got a number of questions that Ovey has come up with herself, with me, and also a number of questions that have been submitted in advance. And as we predicted, we have more questions than time, but we're going to do our best to cover as much ground as we can together this morning. We're going to interact backwards and forwards in dialogue. If you posed a question, you might hear it asked. And there is the option during the webinar to either use the question and answer function or pop us a note, and Rachel's going to help as well as I to keep an eye on anything that comes in. So now we'll shift to the conversation, and Ovey, I really invite you to think of this as a chat by the fireplace, a conversation amongst you and I, whilst we have this lovely community watching the dialogue. And Ovey, before I ask my first question of you, I'm wondering if during the conversation, if at any point you feel like you don't want to answer a question or you've changed your mind, do you think you'll feel comfortable letting me know in the moment, Ovey?
Well, thank you for having me here. I will say yes, Johnny. I should be able to let you know if I need a moment or perhaps skip the question, or if we can answer the question a little later.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, Ovey, you and I have chatted for some time about recovery and mental health, and today I think this is the first live conversation that you've agreed to or accepted since the incident. I'm wondering if you might share one or two of the reasons that you have for agreeing to this conversation today.
Yeah, no, good question. Thank you, Johnny. I also do want to acknowledge that I am on the Coast Salish, or traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish nations, and I guess that's the Musqueam and Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations. So I'm very grateful and thankful to be on this land. All right, in terms of why I accepted it today, oh my gosh, my shoulders just went up. You know, Johnny, it's been a journey. It's not easy.
I know Ovey's been having some Wi-Fi challenges this morning, so.
Mhm. Maybe while we wait
Recover
to,
from a traumatic
Oh,
incident.
there we go.
And oh, sorry,
We
did I cut
we
off or
lost
something?
we lost you for a moment there, Ovey.
Oh no. All right, I will repeat what I just had to say. Where did I end up at?
You
Did
just said
I-
it's been a long journey. We lost you again, Ovey. I wonder, Ovey, it might be your video consuming a lot of bandwidth. So I don't know if we could turn off your video.
My and I've been thinking about
one of the barriers of Zoom webinars that unfortunately I think we've all coped with at one point or another. So perhaps while Ovey rejoins and stabilizes her connection, Johnny, could you tell me a little bit about what you do at the Canadian Mental Health Association in British Columbia?
Yeah, absolutely, and hoping that Ovey can rejoin in a few seconds. So we're a large mental health nonprofit here in BC, and our real focus is on training and education, advocacy and awareness and services around mental health. And it was through Ovey this past couple of years where we've been having some good conversations, of course, around the interaction, the interface between brain injury and mental health as well through journeys of recovery. And so that's why it's super exciting to be here alongside you. Ovey, welcome back. We lost you for a moment, and I'm not sure if it's the video piece. I wonder if it might be an idea. Shall we give it a go if you stop sharing your video and just see if we reduce some bandwidth for a little minute? Okay, maybe we'll try this. Ovey, can you hear me?
I can. I apologies. There's some construction going on. I'm not too sure if that affects the Wi-Fi, but I know the first answer or the first question was just asking why I decided to take this interview today. And it has been, I mean, since August 2014. It's been a long time. It's been 7 years, right? So this is my first time going onto video, and I think in the past, there's a symptom of my brain injury is that when I am under high pressure, I can't think of words. I can't think of the words to say. So I know that I've had a lot of support over the years from the community. And you know how they say it takes a community to raise a child. I think it takes a community to help a person integrate back into society, especially after something so traumatic as a brain injury, or a hit and run for that matter for me. So one of the things that I've tried to do is, you know, write articles to try and let people know how I've been doing and to keep people posted with sort of the impact that they've made, and also to bring awareness to people who have brain injuries, especially because it is invisible. Everybody looks at me and they think, you know, I'm high functioning, and they think, why is it that, why aren't you recovered? What is it that, you know, that you're still dealing with, or what are you still struggling with? And so I'm really grateful for everyone's patience, and I'm very thankful to all those who have been supportive, whether it's a phone call, a text, or just accompanying me as I try new activities and learn and attempt to learn what my new normal is. And so I felt I needed to share my journey, especially now with, I mean, originally it was at the Brain Injury Canada conference, but then COVID happened. So I really felt that this timing is it's almost better now that, I don't want to say better because pandemic is never good, but I do feel that there will be a lot of those who will be struggling to recover, quote unquote, recover, quote unquote, go back to sort of their normal or the new normal. And hopefully what I shared today is going to be helpful for those after this pandemic, or as we transition back to society.
Ovey, well, thank you for getting us underway, and I think your internet connection is much more stable. So hopefully we can let that worry drift away. And I so appreciate hearing, Ovey, around some of the supports that have been helpful, and your interest in sharing your experiences for others to learn from your journey, and your own definition of recovery. And I'm wondering, with my next question, Ovey, thinking about this journey and your experience of what's called recovery, what have you learned about recovery since the incident? What have been some of your biggest learnings about recovery over this past seven or 8 years?
Yeah, it's there's so much. That's a loaded question, Johnny, and you're asking this in a limited time setting, but there's a lot that I've learned, and I think I did write about the 5 stages of grief, and that we can be going through the 5 stages in out of order. There's no particular order, and we can go through it multiple times, and you can also go through the multiple grief at the same time. And people do wonder and ask, like, am I still grieving? It's I think it's never gone, right? That trauma is never gone. The accident happened, so that's not something I guess I can I can suppress it, but it's never going to go away. So it is my quote unquote new reality as well, right? So I think really it's about living with it now. It's more about it's more about living with it, and just I think that's probably the shorter way, I guess, to answer that.
Are there and just to build on your great answer, Ovey, you've used this phrase in your answer there a few times of living with it, and during the past few years, have there been parts of the recovery that have been easier to live with than others?
Yeah. Actually, am I allowed to change that answer?
Yes, of course, of course.
I would say that every day is a struggle. Every moment is a struggle. And for me, I guess what I've learned a lot
as we take another quick break to address some technical issues. Johnny, through the pandemic.
I think Ovey's back. There we go.
Apologies. Oh, okay. That is also very true. Thank you, Adrian, for that suggestion. Perhaps I can also dial in through the phone. Would that make sense? And then that way I can do the phone and video at the same time. I will do that right now. Thank you so much. What was I saying? What was the question?
You were just saying you wanted to change your answer a little bit. There we go. Well, why don't you just take a moment, Ovey, to dial in, and we'll just hang tight for a second.
Jonathan, maybe you could speak a little bit about mental health in relation to the pandemic. I know you're in British Columbia, but kind of what have you noticed in the past year, particularly with people who may already be struggling with mental health challenges?
Well, and I think building on Ovey's questions, we know that the pandemic has had such a big impact upon people's mental health and well-being, and I think in so many ways the pandemic has shone a bright light, and as Ovey said earlier, so much of this is invisible, right? So people have been hard hit. Some of the data we collected showed that 40% of Canadians said that their mental health had gotten worse during the pandemic, and some of the hardest hit have been, there we go. People living with a disability, people living with a mental health or a substance use problem, and young people actually aged 18 to 24. Those are some of the demographics, the groups of people across Canada that have said that their mental health has been particularly impacted. Thanks for your great question.
Well, Ovey's back. It looks like things are good to go. So I'll let you proceed with the discussion.
Thanks, Rachel.
Sorry about that, Johnny.
No worries at all.
That must be horrible.
No worries, no worries.
I did want to continue on with that, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that a big part of the learning is that I think there was definitely a lot of pressure for me when people do ask about my recovery. So they ask, like, aren't you recovered? How's your recovery process been? Like, how's it been to recover? Well, are you recovered now? And there's just so much wrong with the word recovery. Saying it in past tense assumes that I'm done. The other thing is that I do want to sort of bring into light that the word recovery or to recover is literally to restore, to return to original state, to go back to normal. To lots of people that ask me, like, how has your rehabilitation been? It's the same thing. It's to restore, and I will never feel, if that makes sense, restored, because no matter what, it has been damaged, right? Especially the brain. The brain is a big piece of unknown. There's so much that we don't know about the brain, and the more you dig into it, actually, the more depressing it is. I did spend, quite a bit of time sort of in distress, thinking about my future, and especially about the things that I am at more risk of, like Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, dementia. And the other piece is that me as a person, like my personality is I am a type A high achiever, like very much optimistic. And the high achiever in me is just that I just want to make sure that I do everything I can to recover. And it drove me insane. I needed to reach like a certain bar, and I thought that there was a post that I could get to finish recovery. But I don't think that recovery is a bar that you can reach. Like, it's something that is continuous, something that you're always doing. And especially for brain injuries, there's always realizations of what you can't do. So every time that I try and do something that I used to be able to do, every moment it's a realization of what I can't. So I'm very blessed that I don't dwell on that piece. I mean, there's good days and bad days, but I try to focus on moving forward, and I try to focus on what could. I try to focus on that hope piece. I try to focus on my response now that I know what my limitations are. Yeah, sorry, I hope I answered your question there.
No, you did, Ovey, and I think you've shared so much about how you are grappling with and adapting with the definition of recovery, and I think it takes courage to hold the term recovery and speak to your own experience. And I think you, that idea of hitting a threshold or a speed bump where you're recovered and you're pushing on that is really important and powerful. Knowing that today's session is really on that mental health side, and you hinted at this in the answer you just gave, Ovey. Can you tell us a little bit more about the mental health side of the experiences you've had in the recovery? You've already shared a little bit. What would you want us to know about the mental health side of what we're calling recovery today, but maybe there's another word for it, Ovey?
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of mental health and how it sort of played in my recovery journey, that is sort of how I would describe it, as it's a continuous journey, continuous process, is that you do have to advocate for yourself, and it's very, it's exhausting. And I'd like to think that I'm a pretty high functioning, pretty energetic, like pretty positive person, and somebody who's outspoken, right? I can't even imagine somebody who is an introvert. I'm an extrovert, if you haven't already noticed. I'm an extrovert. Somebody who's an introvert, very, very, very calm and very, very quiet, and is not outspoken, how they would advocate for themselves. And it's, I think the mental health piece is really the biggest struggle. And I think that a lot of people didn't really understand what that meant until the pandemic. So a lot of people, and I'm speaking also from my personal experiences, growing up in a Chinese family or in an Asian, community, you don't really talk about these things. You sort of hide it, or if you don't talk about it, it's not there, right? So, but I became more aware, as I mentioned, and it's just been constantly advocating for myself, advocating for what I need, advocating for brain injury survivors. So, trying to bring more awareness so that people know, hey, maybe you shouldn't ask the word, or you shouldn't ask how they've recovered. I think I especially cringe when people ask in a past tense way, and I'm like, well, I'm still trying to go back to quote unquote normal, right? And I think, Johnny, you and I, we've been talking for quite a bit, and pre-pandemic, what was in my slides was talking about the new normal and what that would look like for me, right? Or what that would look like for everyone. And the other piece is that mental health is invisible, just like brain injuries are. And I would say that because they're invisible, that's probably why I feel that you need to constantly advocate for yourself. So the attitude that I would have, or I hope that, the takeaway for people that are listening here and watching, is that you don't know what you don't know. So please don't assume. Please don't assume that you know what that person's going through. Whether it's a brain injury, whether it's mental health, it's always different for each person. So, whether I break a leg and Johnny, knock on wood, you break a leg too, like we would respond differently, and your experience would be different than my experience. And so what I would do is, and this is a takeaway as well, because I think one of the questions was that, what are the most helpful ways for families and friends to support you through this recover, or through points of recovery, or things that people can say or not say that wasn't helpful, is my takeaway for you is how can I help? So that's just something that I would ask, is how can I help? Because I think a lot of people assume they know what I need, they assume they know what's best for me. And people are different. There are different needs at different times, and everybody's experience is different. So if you really truly want to ask, if you genuinely want to ask them, how can I help? And of course, you know, maybe as a child, you might be less aware. So maybe as a mom or uncle, auntie, or as an adult to a child, that might look different. But hopefully, as somebody who is going through that process of recovery, and you know, as I see I don't know, there was at some point I was maybe seeing 8 therapists at a time every week. That's why I'm hyper aware. So I learn more about myself. And so when I learn more about myself, please give me that opportunity to tell you what I need or what I need help with. A question that I think is very insensitive, or not so much. I mean, for me, again, I'm happy to tell you like it is, maybe just because it's, you know, become such almost like a recorded answer, but what happened? I think a lot of people ask that question, and I'm like, does it matter what happened? I need help right now. So when you're asking about that situation, and you know that you're making me relive that situation, right? You're giving that person or that person, that patient, the opportunity to relive that experience, because then they have to walk through everything that happened, or perhaps they give you a short answer like, I got hit by a car, right? But then most people go, well, didn't you see the car? Well, so then of course I have to go through and explain it, and it's not a great experience to relive. It also doesn't matter what happened.
I think we may be in one of those moments with internet freezing. So Ovey's last words there, just before we lost her for a second there, about the issue of does it matter what happened. So hopefully Ovey will come back in a second. We had a good run of it there with her Ovey's internet.
I will say what she said about does it matter what happened is something
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're back again. There we go.
Sorry about that. I believe I am back now.
Oh, I think we've got to turn. I think you're still on your internet, Ovey, on your right one, but we heard you clearly through your phone. So I wonder if you switch which one you've muted, because you've got two of you up.
Oh, I'm muted on my phone.
Okay. We might lose you again because you actually came really clearly through your phone there, but we lost you for a second and you were just saying, does it really matter what happened?
Right. Does it really matter what happened? Because at this point, I need help. And the next time you ask those questions, ask yourself if it's for yourself or for me. You know, is it for that person, or is it for yourself, your own, you know, curiosity, desire to know? And this is something that I think, you know, I've been talking about with my counselor for a while now, and just something that I think she shed some light on, tongue twister, shed some light on, is that people ask, there's especially with, and I don't want to say, you know, with events that are highly profiled. So, and I'll say that, you know, this was, I know I had a lot of support. There's sort of two sides to the coin. There was a lot of support around me and the accident, the hit and run, finding the driver. I know there were lots of people that were like, oh, Black Honda, you know, is that the person? But when there is such a high profiled or highly, profiled event, I guess, there are two sides to the coin. So there's lots of support from the community, lots of people that, you know, want to give and given whether it's a monetary financial means or just help and support, give me a ride, call me when I'm feeling lonely. The other side is that people ask and I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yes, people are curious. So people are either very curious and all they do is ask all these questions for themselves, right? It's a bit of, the intention is to ask for themselves. And then the other side are people that I actually had somebody remove me off of Facebook, and this was after I spent a lot of time just recovering some of my memories or trying to bring back some of my memories and go through Facebook. And I think that's been a little bit of a blessing in that sense, where I posted a bunch of my past. So I was able to go through my past and see, who were my friends and who were the people that I hung out with. But I guess people respond differently to trauma or to a traumatic event. And so that person in particular removed me as friend on Facebook because, and when I followed up with, their partner, I was like, oh, I thought from our photos, it seemed like we're very close. Like we hang out quite a bit. We went on several events, several trips together. Is there a reason why we're not friends anymore? And that person goes, oh, let me check, right? And turns out that person, the way they respond and the way majority of those people that respond to something like such a traumatic event is that they avoid it. They immediately close it off and they just go, oh, it didn't happen, or I'm just going to shut myself off from this so that I don't have to feel. That's another type of person. So curious, somebody who sort of shuts it down. And then there's the people that want to help. There's the people that want to help but don't know how to help. And then assume that they know. And so those are the people that I know they mean well, but really aren't helping. So I know you mean well, but you really aren't helping. So please ask, how can I help? And then there's the people that really genuinely want to help, but just don't know how. Those are the 4 types of people that I think, between my counselor and I, we sort of sorted out and grouped out the way people respond to these traumatic events. So I guess to answer your previous question is, what did I learn as well? It's been a struggle with relationships or friendships. People respond differently. So the people that I thought were friends or the people that I thought would be there for me weren't necessarily there. So that's something you will definitely learn. The people that you think would be there are not, or maybe you expected. And then maybe that's adjusting expectations, right? And then I guess you throw in the piece of the memory, right? Like maybe you remember somebody who was a great friend 20 years ago, but actually, you haven't really been in talks the last 5 years. And when you wake up from that coma, when you wake up and you come out of the hospital or the rehab center, because I did spend 5 weeks in the hospital and maybe 4 weeks in the ICU. And then I spent about 5.5 weeks in GF Strong. So that's like a rehabilitation center. You come out and you're living in a different moment, the moment that you remember most. And that might not be the moment that was right before the accident. So I might have been coming out of the hospital or the rehab center living in 2010, if that makes sense. And so I guess, setting my expectations and then learning that people respond differently, and knowing that you lose some and you win some.
Ovey, and thank you for all of all that you've just shared. A question did come in through the questions, and it's in the list of questions that you and I discussed before today. And the question focuses on friends and family who set up the crowdfunding campaign in the aftermath of the incident. And the question is given what you've just said, what was the impact upon having friends and family set up that fundraising campaign upon your recovery? Specifically, what was the impact of that on your recovery?
Mhm. Thanks for focusing that question, Johnny. Well, I am forever grateful. I also wondered, I was like, wait, what do I need the money for? Don't we have free healthcare in Canada? I really didn't understand where that money would go, but that money flew. So why? I mean, the fact that I was in the hospital and the rehab center for so long, my rent was not being paid. I was not being paid salary. And then the people, the friends and family that took time off of their work just to be by my side. I mean, everybody was alternating and taking almost like shift work. They took shifts just to always have one person in the hospital, which is amazing. I will say again, I'm grateful for any dollar that you even contributed, and for the friends that really did. And I will say maybe 5 or 6 particular friends, 3 that sent up the fundraising campaign, and 3 that really took care of my family, as well as taking care of hacking into my bank account and paying for my rent. So that was very helpful. That allowed me to not worry about things financially. Another thing is that, did you know that when you come out of the hospital or the rehab center, when you come out of a facility, everything afterwards requires payment. Everything afterwards requires payment. And the other piece is that that's where that money went. But I want to talk about to my recovery. I don't think I realized this before, but I feel that I've been under immense pressure, just subconsciously. I want to recover. I want to reach that post. I want to be able to tell you that your I want to be able to tell you that your contribution, whether it's financial or your support, I want to tell you that I have recovered. I want to tell you that I have gone back to normal, that I have gone back to my original state, that I have been restored, but I can't. And so, yes, nobody has told me, Ovey, you have to be recovered. Nobody's outright told me that. But every time you do ask me that question, like, have you recovered? How's your recovery been? Like, there's that expectation. Subconsciously, I think it builds up as well internally and inside me is there's that expectation, and me being the high achiever, and I don't, I want to show that I'm grateful to you as well. I want to, I want to tell you that I am recovered. I know. I mean, I've always been very involved with nonprofits and charities, and it's always been a big part of my life, giving back to the community. But now more than ever, I don't know how I can give back. So I just try and give back. I want your loving kindness, your help in any way. I'm grateful. And so whether I can return that to you, I try to return it to somebody else. And also, I am now also invested in making healthcare more accessible. And when I say accessible, I don't mean like, a wheelchair ramp or, it's just healthcare is very fragmented. And I'm sure if you've been through it, but going from one therapist or doctor to another, transferring the files. Why does it take a few weeks? Why do you need to call multiple times? And also, I'm a native English speaker. I'm local. I understand a little bit of the healthcare system. I would say I'm kind of on the younger side. And I'm very, very familiar with technology. So if I'm struggling, you know, I can't even imagine an immigrant, senior, not as familiar with technology. Yeah, I think I've gone on a rant.
No, you didn't at all.
Sorry.
No, not at all, Ovey. You've shared so much in each of your answers, and I think they're for the people who are listening in here. The people who are listening in here, I think, are appreciating your perspective and your honesty and your feedback on what was helpful or not helpful. And switching gears, because I know we don't have much time left. I just want to switch gears into the area of, and someone wrote in with this question earlier about fulfillment and meaning in your life, because you've really pushed back on the questions you've been asked over time of, are you recovered, Ovey? How's your recovery going? So this question's a bit of a different angle of where do you find fulfillment and where do you find meaning, both of which are very important for mental health. So specifically, Ovey, where have you found fulfillment and meaning in your life over the past while?
Yeah, I feel like that is okay, there's, so fulfillment, I think I saw that question come in, and I wanted to break it up because fulfillment and meaning in life is definitely sort of, I feel like it's two separate things. So definition of fulfillment, it's achieving something's desired, promised, predicted.
We may have hit the wave of internet instability for a little bit longer here again. We'll just give Ovey a second. Hello again, Rachel.
Hi,
Hi, Johnny.
Oh, I think
Sorry about that.
No, there we can hear you loud and clear.
think...
Don't change anything. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Oh man, I apologize for that. So now at this point, it is what you make of it. So I don't think I could ever go back to what was before, to that, because I will never be able to get what I wanted before. That's just not possible anymore. I know my limitations. And so if you were to ask me if I was fulfilled before the accident, I would say yes, and I was striving for more. There's always room for improvement, the high achiever in me, right? And once I was set on my goal, I would sort of dwell on it for a brief moment, and then I would move on to the next, which I think was really and has been my gas for my current, journey to recovery. And I guess with a combination of my personality, it's been a positive in this case. So, I was very focused. I get out of the hospital, I learn how to walk, I get out of GF Strong, I start working. The work looks very differently for what it did before. I spent, I would say, still struggling to settle it back into work. And meanwhile, also trying to live the life that I want to live now. So fulfillment. And this is where I'm stuck, am I fulfilled now? I mean, I could think like I used to and have the same expectations for myself, but then I would always be sad and disappointed. So my choice is I choose not to be sad, and I choose to change my expectation. And, what would my life be like if I was constantly sad and disappointed? What would that do to the people around me? And who would that make me? I'm not defined by my injuries. I'm not defined by my symptoms, but how I respond, I think that would really, really make me like who I am. And it's a continuous process. So every time I'm reminded of it, I have to continually adjust my expectation. And I think, when your question came through, I spent, several sessions with my counselor on this. And definitely it's a realization. And sorry, during that session, it was a realization that at every moment that I'm reminded of it, every time you ask me, what my recovery is like. Every time I apply for a job, every time I plan a team, every time I want to adapt a new skill or learn something new, like a language or code, I'm constantly struggling internally. And so, again, I want to remind you, I'm a type A personality. So fulfillment, I do want to bring in sort of the concept of kintsugi. And I think this has been really, really helpful for me. It's, if you guys are not familiar, and I don't think I was familiar until Johnny, you brought it up, but kintsugi is sort of it's a Japanese, it literally means golden joinery, to join with gold. And again, trauma can be repressed, but cannot be erased. And to have reconciliation with yourself is emotional awareness. So I'm constantly struggling with accepting that new normal or accepting the new me. And that's really hard for a type A personality who's constantly striving for more. So I'm always, I want to embrace the change agents of my trauma. As you guys may have already known, I did do a TED Talk on embracing the unknown, which really is much about the brain injury. I didn't talk about it then, but it's about embracing the brokenness and the things that that we don't know. So kintsugi, it's Japanese mending practice. It's mending jewelry and fixing it with like a golden resin. It's quite beautiful, actually. It is. I think in the past people would break pottery just so that they could fix it again with this gold. And it does also bring up the idea of like, in the Western culture, and I think that's why it's so hard for me to integrate back into society here. It's quite the struggle because everybody expects perfection. Everybody expects like symmetry, and they want everything to be, just the way it is. It's perfect. It's nothing. We don't want to talk about the imperfections, and we don't want to talk about our brokenness. But our whole lives, I don't think anybody's perfect. So if we're not embracing our imperfection, if we're not embracing our brokenness, then we're always focused on the flaws. We're always focused on the bad. And so I guess fulfillment, am I fulfilled now? I think I haven't gotten there yet. I think the key is changing that expectation, changing that story that I tell myself. And, actually the pristine is less beautiful than the broken. And kintsugi, the art of kintsugi symbolizes a repair that requires transformation. So I think I'm in that, transformation phase, and maybe I'll be transforming my whole life. But I definitely felt very broken at some point. I didn't even think I was, there was a point, and thank you for asking, there was a point where I didn't feel like I was adding to society, and I was actually taking away from society. So I didn't feel that I was, that life was worth living. But yeah, just there was a point where I felt like I was going to be more bad, to society because I wasn't happy with my current self. And then my future self doesn't look great with dementia, Alzheimer's. And so, focus on, before I think I spent years focusing on my brain and my skills and perfection and improving and self-improvement. But we need to sort of embrace that we'll never be perfect. No human can be perfect, and we're all damaged in some ways. And damage doesn't mean we cannot change. We just need to change the way we look at ourselves. So I changed the way, the story that I'm changing. I'm still changing the story that I tell myself that, unless I get 4.0, everyone will finally see how, smart I am. That's not true, right? And these stories will almost never happen. And so if we get attached to those stories, we will be, you will have definitely quite the struggle. So I need to refine that. I need to change the story that I am telling. And is that story that I tell myself, is it helping me or is it hurting me? And transformation begins when you start acknowledging all the cracks within you. And we can do that with the pandemic, right? I'm sure there's lots of others here that are struggling to get back into their normal or their new normal. So you'll never go back to your old normal, okay? So I'll let you know that right now. There is only adjusting your expectations or telling that different story. Your plans are going to be ruined for this year and last year. So don't think about these plans. Think about the opportunity. Think about, you know, you can make your life miserable, or you could take the time and see the golden risen. Point is yeah, just change your perspective, look at it differently, and see that beautiful moment. So.
Ovey, I know you're focused so brilliantly on your answers. I just want to let you know there's a lot of love in the chat, which you'll hopefully see afterwards. I think people appreciating that idea of changing the point of view, and people recognizing that your perspective and the stories you tell are powerful for people who are listening and will help people along. It's so true that words make our worlds, and the stories we tell about ourselves are so important, and we have some agency in which stories we want to prefer or not. And I've taken a lot from what you've just shared there, Ovey, so thank you so much. I've one last question for you, because we're bumping up on time, and I wonder where you'll take this question. The idea of kintsugi appears to have been helpful. The art of kind of brokenness, repair, emphasizing imperfection. It seems to be a powerful metaphor. And you've mentioned the gold resin that's used in that process. And I wonder, as we round out this conversation, Ovey, are there a couple of examples of the gold resin in your life that has been particularly powerful? What examples of gold resin are in your life, Ovey?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's somebody, you know, recovering from TBI, traumatic brain injury, or ABI, acquired brain injury. It's a very lonely journey. So even if you do, you know, connect with others who do have that brain injury, there's only bits and pieces where you might relate, but every journey is different. Everybody's experience is different. And so for me, faith has been a big part of my life. I grew up with it. I sort of lost it, and I came back to it because it answered a lot of the questions that I needed to have answered. Like, why did I get hit by a car? You know, was I such a bad person that, you know, was there karma? Like, what am I doing wrong? So those are the things that those are the questions that definitely came to my mind. And I find that faith has given me peace, gives me a lot of peace of what I'm currently going through.
Well, given the past little technical difficulties, I'm very confident Ovey is going to reappear in about 15 seconds. So we'll just hang to make sure we give Ovey the last word here.
Sorry, this must be like a story of my life.
No, you're doing well. It's
Apologies.
definitely a story of adaptation to technology, Ovey. Keep going.
I did want to talk about how I did want to give a shout out to Patient Voices Network. I think what they're doing is so wonderful. They're a nonprofit organization that helps healthcare improvement. And one of the things that they do is they allow or give a platform for patients to be able to, I guess for me, it was sort of like, am I suffering for nothing? Or is somebody going to actually benefit from my suffering? So, and I hate that, you know, I don't, that doesn't sound great. So I hope nobody, you know, I hope I don't have to suffer so that somebody could benefit. But if I'm going to suffer anyway, is there any way that somebody else can benefit from it? And this is where I think it's been important for me to give back to the community. So I think the person that did ask about the fulfillment, I think that's been a way for me. That's been my golden risen, right? Where, okay, now I'm suffering. I'm struggling to go through the you know, our healthcare system. Here, you know what? It seems like I'm not even going to go back
we can hear you loud
online there on the computer. So I'll just go off of my phone. If I'm struggling through this fragmented system, I hope that I can provide that data elsewhere, and so that there can be improvements and that somebody else doesn't have to suffer. So I think that's been a big part of me finding fulfillment, or finding that golden risen is, you know, I can't do what I could do before. I know what my limitations are now. It's very lonely. And I think the last one, so the first one would be, one, faith gives me peace. Two, giving back to the community. So Patient Voices Network has given me that platform. Of course, there are struggles too, and there's things that need to be and could be improved, but I really love the direction of it. And I think it gives the people who are not working and focused on rehabilitation and focused on quote unquote recovery, focused on that journey, it gives them a sense of purpose. So that's number two. And number three is that those relationships, those friendships, the people around you, I don't want to say adjust your expectations, but adjust your expectations. If people are not adding to your life, they're taking away. So, and those who are, you know, trying to, on a journey of recovery to brain injury or mental health, right? Invisible disabilities, you already have so much on your plate. You know, you already have so much on your plate, and you don't need negative people in your life. They take away. I know it's almost selfish. That was something I struggled with, is I felt very selfish that I put myself first now, but at some point you have to put yourself first, and you can't help. You know how I always think of this, and I don't want to end it off like this, but you know, at the airport, or when they always say, like, put on your own mask before you put on somebody else's mask, just make sure that, yeah, you take care of yourself first. And if you're in a good place, mentally, emotionally, health-wise, just physically, yeah, psychologically, all those good things. When you're in a good place, you're able to help somebody else, and you can be more positive and provide a positive impact in society. So.
Well, it's Ovey, another powerful and lovely metaphor to end on. I think many of us have forgotten what airports feel like right now, but your example is incredibly helpful on that note. So Ovey, we're at time, so I'm going to just, before I hand things back to Rachel, just gently close off, sorry about the background noise here, gently close off our conversation. It's been such an honor to get to know you as a colleague over the past couple of years, and have many of these conversations about contesting the idea of recovery, thinking about mental health, talking about kintsugi and gold resin, and and your advice for supporters in the healthcare system around people who live with brain injury. Thank you for holding space and for holding courage and for holding patience and for holding such care today with us, Ovey. Thank you so very, very much for all that you've shared, and hopefully you get a chance to read the transcript in the chat of just how impactful your words have been on the people listening in this morning. Thank you, Ovey. And we'll hand things back to Rachel.
Thank you, Johnny. I think you stole my line a little bit. I just want to extend my deep thank you to Ovey for sharing such, and someone in the chat said this word, and I'll take that for myself, such tremendous insights into what it means to recover, quote unquote recover, I should say. And thank you for speaking so honestly to us about what you went through. And thank you to Johnny for being such a thoughtful and considerate part in this conversation. So,
thank you guys for the opportunity, and I know a few of the people who are listening there. Thank you for your continuous support. I know there's people I wanted to ask earlier, but can you guys all put down like where you came from or what you're calling from? And I know this is going to be recorded, so if you do leave comments and such, in the future for recorded stuff, I'm happy to also answer that. So if you have any other future questions, please jot it in the comments. And also, I think on YouTube, was it, Rachel?
yes. So this webinar is being recorded, and I will be posting it on YouTube when the recording has been edited and available. You're welcome to leave questions and comments on that platform as well. And in the meantime, Brain Injury Awareness Month, we're shining a light on brain injury. I'd like to encourage all of you to take what you've learned today, take what you've learned about the power of sharing personal stories, and help us and the brain injury community in Canada continue to shine a light on brain injury. You can follow along on our social media, you can share your own stories, and we're actually circulating an open letter that we're going to be sending to policymakers at every level of government across Canada. And simply by adding your signature, you're showing your support that the brain injury community needs to be acknowledged and should no longer be ignored or made to feel invisible. So with that, I'd like to say once again, thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.
Thank you everyone for joining and making time.